Welcome back, everyone, to OpenLine. Happy to have with us Chris Sanders, the Tennessee Equality Project. We are talking about a bill in the legislature allowing adoption agencies to deny services to gay couples. It is passed in the Tennessee House, and the Senate will take it up next. We kind of set the table for this. When did you learn about this bill?
Well, as soon as, just before the legislature convenes, we are checking bills that have been pre-filed, and we, as the session unfolds, as they gather in January and on through February, the bill filing deadline, we're reading the bills every day. We're reading them as they file them. In some cases, a reporter has called me 10 minutes after I found a bill and, has asked, "Did you see this?" And I'm thankful that I had read the bill. So,
you're just combing over bill after bill.
Yep, and I read all of them.
And it's interesting, as you said, the word gay is not in this bill.
That's right.
So you're looking, you're having to sometimes read between the lines even, right?
Most of the time now. And, as we were talking during the break, the way these bills have been worded, it's changed a great deal. When I started working on this stuff in 2005, they would more readily use a word like homosexual and try to ban homosexual adoption, whatever that is, in the law. It didn't pass back then. Then around 2008, 2009, there was a shift in strategy. They said no unmarried person who's in a relationship could adopt. And of course, we couldn't get married in 2008, 2009. That didn't work either. This strategy of saying we're not going to focus on the person, we're going to focus on the type of agency and make it look like the agency is being discriminated against because of its religion. And then they can shift the attention to the agency and shift the money to the agency. So the state is not directly discriminating, but the private agency to which the state has given its money is doing the discriminating.
That's interesting. And do you think that's an interesting shift? You're saying they've shifted the point of view to the agency is being discriminated against.
Yes, and it's not even a person.
Right. Because they have a Christian belief in something and they have a right to live by that Christian belief, and the state won't allow them to do that.
That's right. That's the story they're telling, and telling effectively, because they are passing these bills. But the issue is real human beings are being turned away from agencies, real human beings who could provide a loving home. And that means real youth and children are having longer wait times to be adopted. So while we, worry over this fictive person, a corporation of some kind, real people are suffering. They're being discriminated against, or they're waiting longer in custody for their permanent home.
And so you discovered this bill really just shortly after it was filed. You're poring over all the bills filed. You're kind of getting a sense of what's going on up there. What else are you finding, and how would you characterize kind of what's being filed, what you're finding in the current legislature?
Well, the way we summarize this package of anti-LGBTQ bills is the slate of hate. There is the bill that we've seen many times, the Tennessee Natural Marriage Defense Act. It really hasn't moved this year. There are two very similar anti-LGBTQ adoption bills. One of them is not moving. It only allows for a religious reason for turning parents away. The one that's moving, by Representative Rudd, allows both moral and religious objection. There is the Business License to Discriminate bill, which is back from previous years, and it basically says that if a business has a bad non-discrimination policy, if it has bad wage policies, if it does just the bare minimum, a local government in its contracting cannot treat that business differently from a business that has great non-discrimination policies, great wage and benefit policies, on and on and on. And that's a way of getting at our community.
But do you think you've seen more? Like, is this an increase when you're looking through this? Compare it to 5 years ago, 10 years. I mean, where are we right now?
Yeah, I think so. And part of it is a reaction to the Obergefell ruling on marriage in 2015. There's ongoing fallout about that, and how to limit, you know, how much certain people have to deal with married same-sex couples. I mean, apparently it's horrifying and toxifying to them for some reason. And there's also this reaction to the fact that more transgender people are coming out. So the far right, I think, and specifically aspects of the religious right, are very much reacting to that and trying to craft policy to slow the growth of the movement, to slow acceptance, to keep people they don't want to deal with in their world at arm's length.
And so I'm fascinated in your role. You're up there and you're meeting with very conservative lawmakers, and I'm sure you get along, well with some of them, but you disagree vehemently with them. They are uncomfortable by some of the changes they've seen, and they're representing constituents.
Or they think they're supposed to be uncomfortable based upon the districts they represent.
Right, they're representing people that are uncomfortable. That ruling that you mentioned, the marriage ruling, what do you tell? I think it's interesting how you characterize it. They're trying to, I guess, slow the progression or whatever. What do you tell people that do have these concerns about where things are going?
Right.
If they're all worried that we've got to slow the progression of this stuff, what do you say?
I think it's important to give a nod to the stereotypes that characterize their side and our side, and think those through. So I was talking to our members the other day, and I said, one of the things we have to resist is that this becomes a religion versus the LGBTQ community story. And the way we resist that is we've assembled a list of over 125 clergy from around the state who have said, we oppose this slate of hate, we oppose these bills. And that allows people of faith to think twice. A second storyline that we have to resist is, it is rural straight cisgender people versus urban LGBTQ people. Our community is everywhere in this state. A mother of a trans man from Hickman County testified against one of the bills the other day, and she did a great job. But it was so important to have her voice, because we know the stereotype is our movement is completely concentrated in a few cities in the state. But the fact is, our families are everywhere. They are your neighbors. They're people you interact with on a regular basis. And we're everywhere. So it's important to show that. And I think that's how you bring the state together, to show the truth about what's going on in the state. So I don't consider myself against people of faith. I am a person of faith. I'm not against rural people. I grew up in a county of 10,000 people in Kentucky. So I have nothing against, what the majority of the state would consider themselves. But we do have to have a meeting of the minds, and we really have to have conversations about who lives in these diverse districts.
Do you think that's how it's trying to be framed now, a religion versus same-sex community issue, LGBT? Is that what it is, religion versus that?
That's part of it. I really do think it's part of it. I think also historically, since men have political power in this state and many states, although that shifted a little bit, I think it's a certain sense of masculinity. And if you don't fit that, you're lower on the pecking order. And if you're a gay man, you can't possibly fit any kind of reputable masculinity. If you're a trans person, then you are less than traditional, and on and on and on it goes. In the 60s, we called that the patriarchy. It's called various things now. But I think ideas about masculinity, religion, an idea about what real Tennessee is, rural versus urban. All of that kind of rolls in together to make it a tough sell for us in some ways, but we're here to meet the challenge.
Do you feel like in this challenge you're holding ground, losing ground, gaining ground? Kind of, again, you look back over the past 5 years, how do you think it's going? You're seeing all these bills you call the slate of hate. I don't know how many are passing, how many are you not that are getting defeated. Kind of are you holding ground, losing ground, staying the same?
I think at the state level, this year we've slid backwards because bills are flying out of the Tennessee House of Representatives. I think in local communities we are making incredible progress. Where we are planting our regional committees are in rural parts of the state. We have a very active committee in Morristown, which is Hamblin County in East Tennessee. And in December 2017, their county commission introduced an anti-marriage equality resolution. We had 1 week to work on that. And we were able to put together 100 people who showed up at that county commission meeting, who had been contacting their representatives, and they defeated that resolution by a couple of votes on the commission. Something that I think the sponsors thought would be a slam dunk in an area like Morristown. But when you organize in rural areas, you can get results. So that's where I see our future. At least I hope that is what our organizing will continue to look like. The urban areas are always going to be important, we all know that. But I want to be where, you know, all of Tennessee is. I want to connect as much of it as possible, and that's what I think we have to do.
When you think about evolution, you know, are we evolving more in this direction or not, or would we go the other direction? I guess you have a front row seat, and so that is why I'm interested in what you think. You're saying this year has been a tough year. You're organizing in some of the rural communities, and so where do you see us in 10 years? Is it up for grabs? I mean, it could go either way, or do you feel positive?
I do. I was telling you during a break that our biggest event is not in Nashville, it's not in Memphis, and it's not in Knoxville. It's in Murfreesboro, Borough Pride. And we think it's very important to be organizing there. That's one of the fastest growing counties in the country. But it obviously leans red right now, and that's fine. We're glad to be there. But we have some of the best advocates in the state in Rutherford County, and I see that's where we need to be if we want to hold our own in this state. And I do think things will change for our community. I think they'll change for immigrants. I hope things will change for women in this state as well. But it takes organizing in every part of the state and not neglecting communities because you think you can't make any headway there. You have no other choice. That's all there is. So that's why we're fighting in those communities. And I think it spills over to the legislature.
Fascinating. All right, we're going to take a break. We encourage you to call in. Mark was on the line, and then Mark left. So, Mark, if you want to call back, I promise I'll take your call. There's the number, 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. We will take a break. We'll be back right after this.